Eagle Double G.
Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video. And I came in today on this Father's Day to wish all of the fathers out there a happy Father's Day. But today, as I sat thinking about, wishing my father happy Father's Day, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Y'all, when I was growing up, my father was not there for reasons that I'll speak about in another video. The last time I lived with my father, I was about 3 years old. When I was growing up, my grandfather was my father. My grandfather was the first person that ever told me that I was pretty. My grandfather talked to me. My grandfather loved me. He was there when I needed him. And it was almost like my grandfather stepped in and became the father that I never had. He got me my first job. He went with me on my first day, talked to the owner of the place that I was working at. My grandfather was so proud of me and just so enamored of me as his granddaughter that he told these people that I was a genius and that they were lucky to have me and all of that. And on my first day of work, I noticed that all the employees had came out to meet me and they were saying stuff like, after your grandfather told us that, you were a genius and we were lucky to have you, we couldn't wait to meet you. That's just how much my grandfather loved me. I remember one day I had gone to visit him, and when I got there, he was sitting outside. And when I walked up, I noticed that his face lit up. And the closer I got to him, the bigger his smile was. And I remember when I got up to him, I asked him what he was smiling for. And he said, "You are such a beautiful chocolate girl with all that hair." And, he just made me feel just so freaking special. And I felt protected when I was with him. I felt like he was my hero. He also was the person that got me and my siblings our first dog. When I had my son, my first child, my grandfather came over every single day with a gallon of orange juice. Every single day. Y'all, I had so much orange juice that when people would come over and you would ask them, did they want something cold to drink, I would pour them up these big cowboy glasses of orange juice just to get rid of some of this orange juice that my grandfather had brought over. And I remember going to his house after school and just sitting for hours, just talking to him, walking in the park and, just talking. And him being so proud of me when he introduced me to his friends or when I would run into him, out in the street, how proud my grandfather was to introduce me as his granddaughter. Now, when I think about my father is not a bad person. He just had some issues when I was growing up. There were times in my life, like one I could think of when I was 13, and he had came back around, and me and my sibling, we had gone to his house to visit him. And it was awkward because we didn't know him. But we were so excited to meet the man that our mother had told us was our father and how much he loved us, and no matter what went on between them, that he loved us. One thing I can say about my mother is that she never talked negatively about him. Whenever we as children would ask, what happened between them, my mother would always say, that doesn't matter, but what I will tell you is that no matter what, your father loved you. But as kids, you start to think, well, if he loved us or if he loves us, why doesn't he come around? You know? we just didn't understand it. We knew that it wasn't because our mother was, stopping him from coming to visit us, because I remember like when he would say that he was going to come and get us, how my mother would get up running and, ironing our clothes, doing my hair, making sure that we were neat and clean, and, just pumping us up. Your dad is coming to visit you. So it wasn't that we had a mom that, kept us away from him or talked negatively about him, where we wouldn't, be open to developing a relationship with him. So he drifted back into our lives when I was about 13. And once we found out where he lived, me and my sibling, we would ride to his house and visit him, because, finally we were getting to know our father. That went on for about a summer, and then I remember we moved and we didn't see him again for several years. The next time I saw my father, I was about 21 years old. I was just about to turn 22, and I had had my son, and he drifted back into my life. He came into my life when I was pregnant with my son, and, I was happy to see him because, I was in a vulnerable position. I was, 21 and pregnant, and I thought, okay, now that I'm an adult, he's really going to be around and I'm going to get a chance to know him. And he was around for a few months, and then he drifted back out of my life. The next time I remember seeing my father, I was probably 30, maybe 31, maybe a little bit older, because my daughter was about 3. So I probably was about 33 years old. So I hadn't seen him from the age of 21 till about 33. And he drifted back into my life again. I was talking to him on the phone, telling him about my life, who I was, and blah, blah, blah. And we talked for a little bit, a couple months, and then he drifted out of my life again. And then the next time I really talked to him, I was about 38. And I had moved to another city. And it was Father's Day. And I went on the internet and I searched till I found some phone numbers that could possibly be his. I called a number that could possibly be his sister. I left a message telling them who I was, and that if I had the right person, could they please call me back. He called me back. We talked again, and once again I was catching him up on my life. Now I had 2 children. I was living in another city. I was telling him all the things that had happened to me, over the course of the years. And then he drifted back out of my life. About a year or so ago, I was about 50, 51, and I did it again. I searched the internet and, phone records, and I found his sister's daughter. I remembered her name, and I found her. And once again, I left a message saying who I was and that it was Father's Day and I was trying to reach my father. What has happened, though, in the last year or so is I made contact with him. I went back to the city that I grew up in, and I visited him a few times. But when I got there, on one of the occasions that I visited him, I had like an epiphany. I was sitting there talking to a man that I really didn't know. I only knew that he was my father because my mother told me that he was. I found myself trying to get to know him. But what I quickly realized is all the stories that he had to talk about concerning me was about when I was like 3 years old. At the time when I was visiting him, I was about 51, 52. So I found myself listening to stories that I had no knowledge of, and I realized that this man didn't know me. He didn't know what school I graduated from. He didn't know my children's names. I had to tell him their names, their ages, and what was going on in their lives. He didn't know anything about me. He didn't know the ups and downs of life that I had had, times when I needed him so much. What I told him is that, I am an adult now. I have adult children, and I know what it's like to raise a child. I know also what it's like when a man and woman breaks up and there are children involved, and you know how it works when not only do you leave the mother, but you leave the children too. I understood that pain from both sides. I understood it as a mother of two children who I had broken up with their father, and the logistics of getting them to him, and him visiting them, and how when he stopped, how much it hurt them. And I understood it as a child that had gone through the same thing. The last time I had really lived with my father, I was 3 years old, so I couldn't even remember living with him. And when he would only talk about stories involving that time, I realized that he didn't know me. And I also realized that I didn't know him. I didn't want him to talk about things in the past. I wanted him to talk about who he was. What had he been doing all these years? Who are you? Tell me some things about you. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite movie? What high school did you go to? What were you doing? I was trying my best to get to know him. I left the city that I grew up in, and I came back to the city that I live in. And life started happening, and as I've told you guys, I've had 3 surgeries. So during the time that I had those 3 surgeries, within a year and a half, I was going through some things. So I really didn't call my father. I really didn't reach out to him because, at that time, like I said, I was going through some things. So the next call I get is from his sister, kind of telling me how I should be calling my dad, and how, he has been wanting to talk to me. Now, mind you, they had my number, they were calling, but because I really didn't know them, I didn't really have time for them. It felt like they were strangers, and they were pressing me during a time that I was, you know, emotionally down, physically down, financially down, because I had been off work for almost 2 years, getting disability, and I really didn't have time for them because I didn't want to sit on the phone and talk about stuff in the past. Take me as the woman that I am today. Let's talk about what's going on with me today. When these fathers are out of our lives, I think what it is when they come back in, they still think of us as those little kids that they left. They don't realize that we have lived an entire life, especially when you're my age, when you've gone through your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you're now in your 50s, and you've raised children of your own, and you're trying to give this person a chance, but you really don't know them. I feel like I'm talking to a stranger, and every time they drift back into my life, I'm reintroducing myself. So this year on Father's Day, I didn't call. I don't feel the desire to keep reintroducing myself to the man that created me. I'm tired of it. And it also makes me angry that it is expected now of me because he's older now and, his health is not so great. It is expected of me, and I'm almost, you know, argued at for not calling him. And it makes me angry because I think of all the times when I was growing up, when I was a young adult, when I was in my 30s and in my 40s, when I needed him. I look at my friends who have dads and they'll say like I'm a daddy's girl and this, that, and the other. And I've never had the opportunity to be that. I even feel funny calling him dad, but I do. But I don't feel like he's my father. And today on Facebook, I just posted, I can't fake the funk anymore. The person who I see as my father, who I feel is my father, was my grandfather. I have an uncle who also stepped in at times when a girl needs a father, and he was there for me. So the three people that I would wish Happy Father's Day today is my grandfather, my uncle, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear people wish their mother a Happy Father's Day, but I'm sorry, people. It is what it is. That woman that raised me was always there for me. My mother worked her ass off to take care of us. She was always there to talk to. I never went without anything. I lived in a home where there was plenty of food, where we never had anything turned off, or we never went without school clothes or Christmas or birthday things. And it was all because of my mother. She was the nurturer, the protector, the everything. So when people tell me not to wish my mother a happy Father's Day, when she stepped up and did everything that she could in the absence of my father, knowing where he was, knowing that she had openly told him that, he could be in our lives whenever he wanted to. My mother never kept us from him, and she never talked negatively about him. What is lost is his loss. It's not my mother's, it's not mine, it's his loss. Because now, when I'm 53 years old, you want to be a father, but you know nothing about me. Nothing. You don't know what my favorite food is, what my favorite color is. You can't tell a funny story about me. You don't even know where I went to high school at, or even if I graduated from high school. The only reason why he knows it is because I told him, and I told him that I went to college. But he was never there during those years. So y'all, I just came in to say that I really don't know who to wish Happy Father's Day. If people tell me that it's not okay to wish my mother that, my grandfather, the man who stepped in and was there for me, is gone, and he's been gone since I was about 28 years old, so I can't call and wish him Happy Father's Day. My uncle is still alive, and I wished him Happy Father's Day. And I told him thank you for being there when I needed him, when I was growing up and when I was a young adult, because my uncle was there for me. So I just want to know if any of you out there are experiencing what I'm experiencing today. My father is not a bad person, not at all. When I sat down and talked to him, he's easy to talk to, but he wasn't there. y'all. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. And it hurts, y'all. Even though I'm 53 years old, I would have loved to be a daddy's girl. I was a good kid, you know? I never caused any problems. Even, just living in a single family home, I always tried. I tried to be a good daughter. I went to school every day. I got good grades. I, you know, wasn't promiscuous or fast or anything when I was a teenager. I followed the rules. And to stand back and watch other people, other girls have a father and me not have one, you know, the only thing I could say that I'm thankful for is that my mother was so much of a mother and was so full of love for me that while I was growing up, that not having a father wasn't really an issue. Honestly, it became an issue when I became an adult and I had two children of my own. And the love that I have for them, I always wondered, my mom said you loved me. My mother always told us that. Like, as far back as I can remember, my mother would tell me how much my father thought I was beautiful. I had, a head full of hair and just a chocolate little thing, and how much he loved me. But when you get to a certain age, you start to say, well, like I said, if he loved me, where was he when I was growing up? You know? And why did he drift in and out of my life? When he came back into my life when I was 21, 22, we could have started from there. I don't have any ill feelings towards my father. The problem is I don't have any feeling towards him, which is sad. So what I would like for you guys to do is leave your comments down in the comment section. I know a lot of you out there, you were fortunate enough to grow up with your dad in a home. And I envy that a little bit. I really do. But I would like to speak to those people that didn't grow up with their father. And not so much where, we're bashing them. But I want you to talk about what you believe would have been different if you had had him in your life. I just believe that I already was a good girl, but I just think that having that strength of a father, that image and that goodness of a father, because I use my grandfather because he was strong and he was good and he was intelligent and he taught me so much, but he wasn't my father. He was my grandfather. And I had wished that I had that with my father. My grandfather has so many grandkids. I'm the oldest of his grandchildren. And I know that I was special to him, but I would have been even more special to my father. So y'all, that's the end of it, because I was a little weepy today, missing my grandfather so much. I wish that, and I hope I don't start crying, but I wish that I had him now that I'm older and that I could really talk to him and appreciate or tell him how much, this is hard, y'all, how much I appreciated him being there for me when I was growing up, and how the love that he gave me, it warmed my soul. When I would look into my grandfather's eyes, y'all, I knew that I was loved. I knew that there was a man, there was a good man that simply loved me and thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. And I miss him. And with that, y'all, I gotta go because I didn't want to cry and I am crying. But again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And to those of you who are fathers who are not in your child's life, they need you, okay? They need you. And with that, y'all, I'm going to end the video. Thank you, as always, for watching. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.